Good evening, subscribers. Welcome to episode 14 of Complex Humans. It's Oliver Damien here in Sydney, where it's 10 p.m., the 12th of April, 2017 on a Wednesday. Our guest for today is Johan Harnesk. He's in Sodertalje, Sweden, where it's also Wednesday, but 2 p.m. in the afternoon. How are you, Johan?
I'm terrific, thank you, Oliver. Nice to be here.
Yeah,
you look complex matter of
that.
complex human.
What's that?
Yeah. On this complex matter of complex human.
Awesome. So, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I'm sort of into appearances and self-awareness. I mean, in the sense that I'm very aware of my appearances, and I would like to sort of talk about it, explore it with you in some ways, maybe. I mean, it's kind of a big topic, but there's certain levels that I find fascinating with self-awareness.
Yeah. So how would you like to start probing this? You want to start with appearances or self-awareness?
I'm sort of curious to start with how you perceive this endeavor you're on with these broadcasts, the blog, and see if that is a way into it.
Yeah. The thing I like about the format of this Complex Humans is that it's unplanned and something emerges between the two people, like me and you. Just it's like an emanation or an emergence happening as we relate to each other, and it's quite raw.
Yeah.
Like you've seen videos where it's obviously rehearsed and it's so polished and it's so, and this is a bit different. So and at the same time, it's not the YouTube comedy where, you know what I mean, like where it can go anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about it, and I'm genuinely curious as to what my guests would say and do, and
Yeah, because that is one of the things I'm seem to be hardwired to do, to keep an open discussion or exchange of ideas to see where they go. I'm not so interested in that aspect to go from A to B, rather than see what's happening. Will we arrive at B or somewhere else?
And where does your interest lie?
Pardon?
Where does your interest lie? Where does your interest? Where is your interest in this realm?
Well, on the broader sense, it's what is self-awareness? What kind of entities can have self-awareness?
Got it.
And what defines what is not self-awareness? I mean, we can have complex systems that doesn't seem to be self-aware. I think it started when I, in my youth, read Gergory Bateson, Mind and Nature, and how he seemed to, I mean, in that sense, transference of information.
Yeah.
and but in that aspect, it's like we always will have gates or where something is feedback somehow, and to make I guess a selection in the path we're taking.
Yeah.
If I one of the examples he used was the steam engines.
Oh yeah, the governor, right? Is it the governor? It's called the.
Okay, yeah.
To regulate the flow of steam. Yeah.
Precisely, and how they solved that on a practical level, and it wasn't in the mid 19th century, and it wasn't until 1930 with the cybernetics that they mathematical knowledge to use feedback loops in how they understood it.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And for me, it's like my mind. It can sort of rush away or start to just going all way, all sort of ways. And especially with the sort of loops that sort of reflects itself.
Yeah.
Like the mirror showing its own images.
Yeah. Like even like Bateson is one of the pioneers of cybernetics, and cybernetics, I think from the Greek, if I remember correctly, means the steersman, the steering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's about it's about this looping. It's like I remember this riddle, like the unsolvable riddles where, like, if you see a statement, this statement is false.
Yeah.
If it's true, then it must be false. But if it's false, it must be true. So once you start once a thing starts referring to itself, you enter into complexity. So that is what they're saying now, that with computers, we are now at a level of sophistication that these self-enforcing feedback loops are happening with our computer systems. So they're even though they're bits like ones and zeros, they're at such a level of complexity that there are things that cannot be explained anymore because they're just emerging. They're having emerging properties.
Precisely. And that is what I think we humans have problems with sort of as well, or if that is sort of built into this level of problem. And Bateson, I know, and maybe Wittgenstein to try to solve it by sort of different levels of Bateson call it meta levels, and it could be time that is the different level of looping, and how you sort of differentiate between them and work with them to not get these kind of referring problems, sort of. But I do find it in the way we as a society with this social media thing where we constantly just sort of reflect ourselves, and for me that is a self-awareness and appearances, an attention to appearances that sort of has gone down the wrong way. Sort of.
In what way? In what way do you see that?
Because we can't sort of lift us up from that sort of self-imaging, self-looking. It seems to me that we don't get input from somewhere else. Always reassuring or ourselves with our own ideas, sort of.
Yeah, I remember even before all these social media networks exploded, when I was still doing my legal studies, we read this article by Cass Sunstein. He's a lawyer, but he writes about social stuff. He wrote about we're creating echo chambers, that the online communities is very prone to creating echo chambers. And I really found that when during the Trump elections, like all my friends were against Trump. You hardly can hear any other voice. It's like a self-reinforcing mechanism. And this positive feedback loops can be dangerous because it can lead to extremism. Because if everything you're hearing is reinforcing one belief, then it can just run away, that you end up demonizing people who are not drinking the Kool-Aid of your echo chamber. But the medium is quite flexible. Like I myself mix it up, so I follow both left and right, ultra capitalists and communists in my feed. So but you could do that because there's no limit now, because with digital technology, unlike in the old days, like paper is expensive, so you can buy lots of books because it will bankrupt you. But with Twitter, Facebook, you can follow almost as many people as you want, right? And you could. It's just funny that people, instead of embracing the richness, they just go to this narrow level of connecting with people who agree with them. And then what's the point of you know what I mean? Like there's this whole tradition of debate. And now it's even interesting, like during that Trump election thing, I was purposely trying to seed my feed with some, not really pro-Trump, but some skepticism about Hillary and that. And someone, they call it, you know, in the Latin policy, ad hominem. They attacked me instead of attacking the arguments. They attacked the person. It's like, are you a Trump supporter? It's just like, there's no room for discussion, and that is authoritarianism. And these are the people who say they're for freedom, you know? So it's interesting how it can go sideways. You're right. Yeah.
I think, I don't remember who said it, but it could have been originated with the old Greeks. But someone is disrupting your circle, and how you could welcome that.
Yeah.
And for me, again, it's sort of again, I found Bateson interesting in that where he described systems as being by flexibility and rigidity.
Yeah.
Like we have to have a certain amount of to maintain the form, but still enough flexibility to be able to change if needed.
Yeah.
And for me, it seems that we can a way of maintaining that equilibrium of system, or we can go through either side of it either be very conservative or being very but yeah, so for me it's the aspect of it is what makes balance. Well, how can we sort of go about in a way that sort of shift things from one side to the other and sort of keep it sort of dualism that's also maybe inherent in the system.
Yeah, it's like it's not stasis. It's more dynamic equilibrium, or equilibria, because there could be many points of equilibrium. And yeah, and I think that's how nature works, right? Nature keeps creating lots of possibilities. That's why there's so many species that even if a lot of them have gone extinct, that's the way of nature, is just to create lots of them, so that when things happen, others will survive, and this that. And that's why there's a bit of a danger when I'm a bit worried when people keep pushing efficiency, because efficiency by nature is not efficiency is not redundant, right? Like they were saying, if we design the human body, we'll just have one lung, one kidney, because you only need one, because that's more efficient. But nature is like, no, I mean, anything can happen, right? Yeah.
I would find that interesting to have a broader perspective of models we can build that has that sort of robustness for certain parts to fall away.
I would go even further. I would go even further, and I don't know if you've read Nassim Taleb on anti-fragility, being anti-fragile. So you have fragile systems, robust, and anti-fragile. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anti-fragile likes change. It likes disruption. It thrives. It needs a certain amount of stress in order for this to be alive. Just like our bones. If you don't stress our bones, they will atrophy. They will die. That's why astronauts, when they come back, they're like they start functioning, because there was not enough stress in zero gravity.
Yeah, that's my point. I think that we really need to focus on or pay more attention to these kinds of questions or systems that would allow us to be a better part of how nature works, because at the moment we're pretty lousy and really tearing of nature and ourselves at its worth. But I mean, still there's so many parts of the system that sort of can regenerate and things like that. But yeah, to better know when the system breaks, when an ecosystem needs 10 or 20% of its totality to function. These things, I think, we really need to explore more or learn more about if we want to survive as.
Yeah, and I have hope, because as you know, I'm studying product design here in Sydney, and the way they're teaching us, I just had a lecture like a day, I think it was on Tuesday, on human-centered design, and they were talking about, instead of in the old industrial way of thinking, you design systems so that they're foolproof, they're error, so they're like fail-safe, that it's error-proof. But actually, a better design is that even if it's fault tolerant. That's a better way of designing it. So that assume that mistakes will be made, but create your system that even if mistakes were made, it can recover from it. So when we are being taught that when we design stuff, make it visible if errors have been made, make it easy for it to recover from it, instead of spending so much time to make it perfect or to make it without error. In a way, it's embracing error, which is a different way of looking at it. And
that reminds me of I heard discussions from doctors who that since their occupation is about life and death, and they have a very high it has to tend to be that they're infallible and they have difficulties explaining or acknowledge that they do wrong. Realize that they really need to be able to express their faults, otherwise it creates a very the wrongs can be much more.
I mean, you just have to go back to history. Like in the past, doctors were killing people, and people say if you go to the hospital during those days, you'll definitely die. You know, those were the days where bloodletting was the modus operandi. So they cure people by letting out blood. It was it was like a thing, and people, as you say, people in authority proposed this thing. They had this theory, and they just stuck to it, and they just bled people to death. And what actually saved medicine were the barbers. In a weird kind of way, the barbers were the first surgeons. So there was a bit of overlap between barbers doing surgery and the esteemed doctors doing the bloodletting. So there's like an interesting, and I think we're entering that phase again where we've become too reliant on experts to the point that people have lost their own common sense sometimes. And like personally, I experiment on my body because I believe that's the only way to know it. Because like doctors are trained to spot patterns, right? And patterns are patterns. They're not suited to particular. Maybe in the future we'll have individualized medicine, but we're not there yet. So in a way, they're just guessing statistically that when they see a symptom, this is the cure, and you fall within the bell curve of probabilities. Not everyone fall. You know, you could be an outlier, and there's anecdotal evidence. Like I have a friend, she had this very painful stomach pain, and the surgeon removed her gallbladder, and she still had the pain. And finally, she had to ask other opinions after it's already been removed, and she found out she was gluten intolerant. And apparently, the more she researched about it, apparently, I don't know if the doctors watching this can verify this. Apparently, at least in Australia, doctors only get a subject on nutrition. So they're not taught nutrition. To know nutrition, you have to be a nutritionist. And you would think that if you're a doctor, shouldn't proper nutrition be a key component of your training? It's just bizarre to me.
Yeah. It's I think it's the same here, that Swedish doctors they do study nutrition, but not. Yeah.
That's the danger of specialization, right? If you've been rewarded, if you've been trained for 10 years to think in surgery terms, so when something's presented to you, you're likely to think that the solution is, you know, if you're given, what did they say? If you're given a hammer, if you only have a hammer, you think everything's a nail, right?
So yeah, I guess that is also one aspect of appearances. I find that also interesting, that appearance is both an sort of active. It create an appearances to be that and that, but it's also sort of something that appears to be. So we do have to sort of guess, is this how it actually is, or
Yeah.
and that's where the self-awareness comes in, and how we have to sort of regulate and try to find the balance. So and it's not easy because we're complex humans, I guess.
Like, I believe that social signaling is a whole field in itself. How we signal each other, and I think I listened to a podcast where they discuss that, the my Facebook profile, my LinkedIn, my Instagram. uh, I'm using it whether consciously or unconsciously to signal the kind of person who I am. So there's all
Yeah,
this signaling going. In the same way that
yeah,
peacocks have this bright feathers to signal, but
yeah,
we're doing it. We're animals, that's the part of being human. We're half animals and half angels. So we
yeah,
hope we could appear to the better half of angels. But not this.
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with the animals. But you know,
No, and
twisted
and I'm
relationship
not.
between the two, right?
Yeah, I haven't come to a conclusion or decided if sort of be the one I'm appearing to be, or try to be something else, or play with what I'm seem to be or could be, and I mean it's constantly like a continuum, and we have to feedback to, oh, this happened, and should I do this and that in response to what happened, or yeah, it's like, yeah, well.
it's like what's happening. I'm here. I'm talking to you, Johan. I'm talking to this screen. At the same time, I'm aware that people are watching this. And at the same time,
Yeah,
there's this consciousness looking at
yeah,
me, doing, and then there's this thing anticipating what's the next thing.
yeah. We need to draw a map.
Yeah, and then there's that joke, right? I know that you know, and you know that I know that you know. That's how that's how complex humans are. We can think in
Yeah,
different levels of abstraction, and
yeah,
yeah, and we're almost out of time. Maybe I know, because you're both a big student of Wittgenstein and Bateson. Are you able to give us like a gist, or no, not a gist? The works are too complex. But personally, for you, what's your main takeaway from these two people? And also, if you could just give us a story of who they are as persons, because I haven't really read them that well. All I know is this shallow knowledge that there was a pre something Wittgenstein and then the post something Wittgenstein, where he totally reversed his earlier work, and that's amazing for
yeah,
someone to do that, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, Wittgenstein. I mean, it's his. I think both Wittgenstein and Bateson has had the major influence of the 20th century,
Uh,
but they have had it in such a way that it seems like anyone who approaches it get their own idea or interpretation of what they're saying. So I
happens all the
remember,
time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And for me, it was very obvious with Wittgenstein when I've been sort of returning to him during the years that oh, saying I thought the opposite 10 years before. Uh, but yeah, I mean, his first early Wittgenstein, he sort of, or yeah, he thought that he had sort of solved the whole philosophy, like that there is this level of things that you can't talk about, and those things you shouldn't talk about.
And how do you know which are those things?
Wo man nicht sprechen kann, darüber muss man schweigen. In German.
What did you just say?
The things that you can't talk about, you have to be silent about.
Can you say it again? It sounded so good.
Wo man nicht sprechen kann, darüber muss man schweigen.
I could feel the force behind the word.
Yeah, but later he sort of was more interested in language games, I think he called them, where he the parts of the language and how they worked from us as part of reality, that we sort of through the language construct of understanding that maybe I'm not sure about this, but as I'm interpret it, you I guess you can't know, because then I had to sort of bring in Noam Chomsky as well, because he had a different understanding of he seems to be of the opinion that born with a
we're born with the
language gene.
I'm still undecided about that. I'm not sure.
Me neither. But yeah, I think we could say that Wittgenstein's idea that we are constructing ideas through our language, which are not necessarily the same as what we are doing in the real world as creatures.
Yeah.
And Bateson, he sort of tried to find the way of understanding how different systems, entities, mechanisms are working and exchanging information in a sort of system.
System thinking, yeah. We when we studied complexity in this summer school, there were references to Bateson as well. Yeah, and yeah, because if you think about it, like we are composed of systems, really.
Yeah.
Like the I is something that emerges out of all these systems interacting. And sometimes, sometimes the systems have a life of their own, right?
Johan norpade mina. Nej, jag hade han norpat iPaden här.
I had Eva here.
Så Johan håller på att prata. Hi Oliver. That's a long time. No see.
Another guest. Maybe next time we could talk about shaking.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, sort of.
Sorry.
All this in the house, sort of, and try to connect them in various ways. So now Eva came home and
we have a feedback.
Where?
Mechanism everywhere. And it reminds me, do you know this is Japanese artist Yayoi Kusama, where she creates infinity?
Oh yeah.
She's like, she says she has a mental disorder. She's just obsessed with these things, and I think she lives in a mental institution actually, and she was able to do art while living there, and she's just obsessed with this infinities and mirrors on mirrors, and in a way, the ancients had it like with the Ouroboros. It's like this the snake eating its own tail, right? So it's been there.
It's all there. Well, they're all Greek.
Yeah, maybe next time. I remember reading this book by Hofstadter where he talks about that consciousness is that self-referential loop, really. I have to read it again. I must admit, when I read it, I kind of got lost in it. Maybe I went in my own loop.
Yeah, I tried reading him too, and yeah, I'm getting lost somewhere.
Yeah, I think he didn't have like a clear, I don't know, but maybe I'll try again. So any last words for our viewers? I know it's quite an interesting.
I have no last word from our viewers.
There's no last words. It's still
my last word.
I have a last word. Last sentence is the only Swedish sentence you taught me. I still remember. Vilda botten mirne. It works every time.
Every time, yes. Especially when you ask the skitsnygga sjuksköterskorna.
Can you say that again?
The really beautiful nurses. Skitsnygga sjuksköterskor.
Love the Swedish language. All right, thank you, Johan. You've reminded me to check out and read Gergory Bateson and Wittgenstein. What's Wittgenstein's first name? Ludwig?
Ludwig.
Ludwig Wittgenstein. How do you say his last name?
Ludwig Wittgenstein.
Wittgenstein. All right, thank you, Johan, and viewers. Thank you for joining us in our brief tour of cybernetics, philosophy, feedback loops, and and as always, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you, Johan.
Bye.